Hello, today we're going to talk about ranked choice voting, which is brand new for 2021 in New York City. Ranked choice voting is something that we use all the time, actually. It's not a new idea. Think about when you and a group of friends go out to get a pizza, and your first choice for pizza toppings might be pepperoni, but the other people you're out with, they just want plain cheese. And so plain cheese might be your second choice, and you're going to be perfectly happy sharing that pizza with your friends when it's plain cheese. So maybe you don't always get your first choice, but your second choice is something you can live with. And when we talk about ranked choice voting in the election, that's how we're going to think about it. So what is ranked choice voting? In most elections, you can only choose one candidate, single choice voting. But with ranked choice voting, you are going to have the opportunity to rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference. It's still your one vote, but you get to rank 5 candidates according to your preference. There are many benefits to ranked choice voting. Let's talk about some of them. First of all, ranked choice voting gives you more say. You get to be strategic and think about possibly five candidates who you could support, who you could live with. And when you think about this, it might be a candidate that's going to be your first choice who believes in everything you believe in and stands for every issue you care about. Another candidate might represent almost everything you care about, almost everything you believe in, and it's a candidate that you can still support. So it really allows us as voters to focus on the issues. Which candidates are going to represent me and the positions that I believe in the best possible way? It also allows your ballot to stay in the game longer. And we're going to talk about what that means in a couple of minutes. Another advantage of ranked choice voting is more civility and less negativity by the candidates. In places where ranked choice voting is being used already, around the Bay Area and California, for example, candidates have figured out that they can actually form coalitions and do advertising together, claiming that each of the candidates represents the same issues, has the same concerns, and suggesting that the voter rank them as choices 1, 2, and 3. Also, it makes the candidates think a little bit more carefully about trash talking or being negative about their opponents, because we, the voters, may not look fondly upon a candidate speaking ill of another candidate that we might want to rank. Another benefit of ranked choice voting is very often it allows more diverse and representative candidates to win the election. For example, in your community, let's say in the city council race, you might have 9 or 10 candidates running for that city council seat. And maybe 3 of those candidates represent your community, your cultural group. Before ranked choice voting, you had to pick only one of those candidates. Now you can rank those candidates, and so there's much less vote splitting, and there's a greater chance for someone who truly represents your community to get elected. Who approved ranked choice voting? Very importantly, it was us, the people of New York City. In 2019, there was on the ballot the opportunity for people to support ranked choice voting. And even though the turnout was very low in that election, 73.5% of New Yorkers who voted in that election supported the ballot proposal to adopt ranked choice voting. So ranked choice voting was implemented this year, and it was used for the special elections, and it will be used for the primary. not the general election, just the primary and those special elections that have already occurred. Ranked choice voting will be used for the mayor, the public advocate, comptroller, borough presidents, and city council. So how do we vote using ranked choice voting? You get the opportunity, as I've mentioned already, to rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference. So for example, if I am the voter and you look at this ballot, you could see that candidate B was my first choice. Candidate B represents all the issues I care about, stands for everything I believe in. But my second choice candidate, candidate C, came very, very close and represents almost everything I believe in. Candidate A, similarly, candidate E as my 4th ranking, and candidate D as my 5th ranking. Now, the important thing to remember is we're only going to rank candidates that we can support, that we can live with. Going back to our pizza example for a minute, I'm never going to rank anchovies because I don't want anchovies on my pizza. So I would never rank a candidate that doesn't stand for the things that I care about. So we can rank up to 5 candidates, but you don't have to rank all 5. You could rank fewer numbers. Now, very importantly, on the ballot, we have to really make sure that everybody understands how to complete the ballot. This ballot would not be correct because the voter here only wants candidate B and has filled in all 5 rankings for candidate B. The machine, if you vote in person, will not accept this. You can only rank 1 candidate for each ranking. If a person is voting absentee and does this, it could be problematic because the ballot would then have to be cured and it's very stressful for the voter. So we really want to make sure everybody understands that this would not be a correct way to complete the ballot. Candidate B, if it is this voter's first choice, should only have gotten the one for ranking number 1. Similarly, this would not be an acceptable ballot. In this example, the voter, let's say, could not decide between candidate B and candidate C as their first choice, and so they tried to rank them both as their first choice. You can't do that. You can only rank a candidate once. Now, let's talk a little bit about how the ballots are actually counted. So let's imagine for a minute the election has happened. All the ballots have been counted, all the absentee ballots have arrived and also been counted, and they will be reported. The count will be reported as first choice votes. So let's look at this example. In this example, in this election, candidate A received 16% of all the voters' first choices. Candidate B had 54% of all the voters' first choices. Candidate C, 22% of first choices, and candidate D got 8% of all those first choice votes. Now, in this example, you can see that candidate B has already won more than 50% plus 1 of all the first choice votes. Candidate B is the winner of this election, and this election is now over. However, we are expecting that in the primary, it's going to look more like this. In other words, you can see that in this election, no candidate won 50% plus 1 or more of the first choice votes. Let's look at what happened here. Candidate A in this example won 27% of the first choice votes. Candidate B won 39%, candidate C 22%, and candidate D only won 12% of first choice votes. Now in this situation, because nobody is at 50% plus 1, we begin the ranked choice voting rounds. And here's what happens. Candidate D is eliminated because candidate D was the lowest first choice vote getter. What happens now is everybody who voted for candidate D as their first choice gets their second choice candidate. So let's imagine I'm the voter and I voted for candidate D as my first choice. But let's say I voted for candidate C as my second choice. My ballot now goes to candidate C. Now, remember when I said earlier about using ranked choice voting keeps your ballot on the table longer. This is just what I was referring to. In the old way of voting, if I had cast my ballot for candidate D, my vote counted because I voted for candidate D. But candidate D is not on the table anymore, but my ballot still is because I chose another candidate, candidate C, let's say, as my second choice. So now we take a look. Other voters might have selected candidate A as a second choice or candidate B as a second choice. The second choice votes get added to the total. Now we're ready for round two. And we can see candidate C is now the lowest vote getter. So we're now going to eliminate candidate C. Now, let's imagine I had voted for candidate D as my first choice. I voted for candidate C as my second choice. Now I get my third choice. So let's imagine that my third choice was candidate B. And we could also assume that other voters who voted for candidate D for their first choice, candidate C for their second choice, might have selected candidate A as their third choice. So now my ballot is still in play. My ballot is still on the table. These rounds will continue until we have only 2 candidates left in the race. So you could imagine if there were more candidates, we would have to continue the rounds and I might get my ballot sent to my 4th choice, to my 5th choice, until all of the candidates have been eliminated except for 2. At that point, we look at the greatest vote getter, and in our situation here, candidate B has won this election with 58% of all of the combined first choice, second choice, third choice, 4th choice, and 5th choice votes. All of these candidates are receiving votes from people who say they can support them, they can live with that person as their elected official. Now, a warning. Ranked choice voting, obviously, because of the length of the rounds, might take longer than traditional elections, but that's okay because it will be done right. And even now we know in New York, the counting does take a little longer because in New York, absentee ballots don't get counted for 7 days after the end of the election to allow all of them to arrive at the Board of Election. So this may take a little longer, but your ballot is in play. Nobody can win with less than 50% plus 1 vote, and ranked choice voting will be used in this primary election.